home, and welcome to another episode of the Earth Station One podcast. That's right, folks, we're back, and we got a music episode tonight. It's been a while since we've actually sat down and done one of these, and we thought, what better way to spend the summer is thinking about tropical islands and desert islands in some cases. And a lot of radio stations used to do this when I was growing up, your desert island discs. And, what would you be, if you were stuck on an island, what would be the 5 discs you'd be wanting to hear? So basically, we're changing it up a little bit. Basically, we're doing albums, LPs. It could be anything goes. It could be, a best of album. It could be a live album. It could be whatever the people who are going to be on the show tonight want it to be. And it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about because each one of us has a different taste in music. And I'm sure we're going to be all the way across the board on this one. So I think this could be interesting to see where we go. And you know what? We got a great crew to talk all about it. Of course, it's a music episode. Our music expert herself, Michelle, is here. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So what was the thinking behind this?
It just popped in my head one day.
Really? And we're like, we haven't done that. We haven't done
that. Let's try it.
That's awesome. Well, it is good to have you here. And there's great, I had a list of 100 and I had to keep on narrowing it down and cutting it out. Like, but one of these is my baby. It's one of my favorites, So it really was tough. It is. So it's going to be very interesting to do. And we got also, of course, Ricky and Bambi from Radio Culture.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. It's great to have you guys back.
It's weird. It's on video now. I'm like, hi.
I know. It's like, oh my God, I had to brush my hair, my teeth. So it's awesome to have you both here. And of course, couldn't do the show without my partner, Mr. Mike Gordon is here.
Howdy.
How are you, my friend?
I am peachy keen. Not bad for being stuck on a desert island.
We didn't say there wasn't any electricity because, how would you listen to these discs without electricity unless it's solar powered?
Solar powered.
Exactly. That actually was one of my questions. On this desert island, is there a record player?
Which desert island?
The professor made one.
Okay. He made it out of the transistor radio. That's
out of coconuts and whatever else he used, palm trees and palm
Gilligan's
leaves.
in the back just pedaling away to get the record player going. Come on, Gilligan, it's 33 and a third. Not a 45. That's pretty awesome. It's going to be a fun time to talk all about this. So let's jump in with both feet. We got a lot of albums to talk about, folks. So Mr. Mike, ready?
Yeah, we each had to whittle it down to 5. Before we get to our picks, let me ask so we can get it, sort of straightened out. Like, Bambi, what was your approach to this? Like, how did you figure, did you put any rules on yourself as to what to include, what not to include, or anything like that nature?
I actually did. I actually kind of thought if I had to put them together, like, it's different if you have just one album that you're stuck listening to. And I tried to wonder, is it something I have to listen to on repeat, or just when I'm bored out of my mind, I get to put something on? So I actually kind of chose my selection based on each other, kind of,
right.
It's, also like, what would I not get sick of?
Gotcha. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, go. Absolutely. No.
Yeah.
And to that point too, it's like, yeah, would it be different? Like, obviously this is just a way of saying these are our favorite albums. But is it more than that? I mean, do you have to put more thought into it because you're actually like taking it like seriously? Like, oh, I'm really stuck here, so I'm not going to pick this album, even though it's one of my favorites, because I've already got X, Y, and Z, and I need something else to fill that hole, right?
Yeah. Or there's also what if it all went away, I would never get to listen to these albums again. So would I pick one of these so that I would get to listen to it?
Right. Ricky, what about you? I know you've given it a lot of thought on the ride home.
Yes. It's a long ride, in fairness.
It has to be a long ride. It has to be.
Well, as I mentioned earlier to you guys, I didn't know if best of albums were counted, which they are.
They can be, sure.
I'd also wondered about soundtracks.
Soundtracks as well, live albums or compilations. Michelle asked me if multi-disc collections were included, box sets were included, that kind of thing. And I'm like, you know what? We leave it up to you guys.
So would it be like it could be an instructional video on how, or a CD on how to survive trapped on an island?
Sure. Although that's a little bit taking the spirit of the idea a little bit too far, I think. I find it hard to believe that you would want to listen to that over and over and over again.
I don't know if it meant survival.
Well, okay. Yeah. Maybe depend on who was doing the voiceover, right?
Yeah.
If it's How to Get Off the Island as narrated by Neil Gaiman, I think she could listen to that over and over.
It was like I think Berman or something.
I think it was the phone book listened to by Neil Gaiman.
Right.
She could listen to that too.
Are those awful voiceover things on video memes where they just have the robotic voice? Oh, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah. Michelle, what any more thought that you gave into it as well in terms of how you decided? Because you like you said, like I said, you asked me about box sets. Was that something that you were prepared to include?
Yes.
Because some box sets have 5 discs. No, just kidding. That's it. You only get one. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
That's it. You're done. Wow.
It's the Water Boys forever.
And it does kind of depend. I mean, if you're talking about actual like CDs, I know for the kids today, they're like, what are those? Or vinyl, it can be different. The number of discs can vary depending on your format. So I guess it doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of what you consider something that you would want to bring along to listen to, whether that be a collection or an actual concept album. Mike, any last words on how you configured your list as far as how you went into it?
Oh, like I said, I started with a list of 100 different CDs and albums and just started narrowing it down. It's like, okay, and it literally came down to like 5 of my children, which, basically was like, okay, which ones am I going to listen to, which had the most effect on me and that I can listen to over and over again and not just get sick of it also, because that's a big thing. If this is, if I'm on the island by myself, and it's not like all of us are on the island together, we're gonna, you're supposed to be there all by yourself and basically listening to what your only 5 CDs or albums or, MP3s that survived the boat wreck that, stranded you on this island. So, and how much coconut milk you have left to survive with. So
it's true. It's true. If it's fermented, man, you can take that to town.
It's rum, so it's okay.
All right. So, it'll be really interesting to see too if you guys noticed any themes in what you picked and whether or not they have anything in common or not. So let's get to it. Michelle, since it was your idea, we'll start with you. What is the first disc that you are taking to the island?
Without any need for thought, with no question at all, it is Queen: A Night at the Opera.
Queen: A Night at the Opera.
Yeah.
Excellent pick. Queen is on. I knew Queen would be on your list.
I'm not going to surprise anyone.
No.
Why that particular album? Why put that particular album from Queen?
It has 39 on it. It has the Prophet song on it. It's the first one I ever heard and bought. It is always my sentimental favorite, and I could not do without it.
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, I'm not surprised that Queen would probably any Queen album, I think. Well, maybe not anyone, but almost all of them. But actually, on my list, my short list, I had a few Queen albums on my short list. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with a lot of their albums. So
probably only one or two.
Yeah, there's probably one that you wouldn't put on your list ever, and I have mine on my list. But that's for another day. All right, Bambi, how about you? What's one of yours?
Pump by Aerosmith.
Really awesome.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah, I actually thought if I had to pick just one, that probably would be it.
That there was some Aerosmith ones I was considering. And that one, I don't think I actually have the whole album of that one. But I think in my mind, that's like their last best album, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, for me anyway. I know that they've made about 4 or 5 albums since then, but I think that one to me is like has their best stuff on it. Their last best stuff on it, if I can say that. So but yeah, because it is interesting because some of these albums are not necessarily my favorite, include some of my favorite songs by these artists.
Right.
And some of them are not even my favorite artists, but they are the favorite, like it's my favorite like collection of all of these songs put together in a way that I appreciate more than any of the others.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, yeah, neither one of those albums have great, I mean, both of those albums that you guys have mentioned so far have great songs on them, but I don't know that collectively I would put them on there. But there's some that I think are their greatest songs ever that they've ever done.
Yeah. It's also my favorite production for an album.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're hoping that the island has really good speakers.
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Really good headphones.
Headphones, like noise canceling headphones.
Yeah.
There's a nice Bose sound system right there.
Yeah. So you can't hear those ships when they go by.
I just won't care.
I don't care.
I'll
I
be in
just
the
listen to
zone.
my dudes here.
The rescue ship is going by and Bambi's jamming out.
She's
You
like-
don't even notice.
Yeah. Ricky, what about you? What's your first one?
The first one was easy. The first one for me just instantly was no question about it. U2's The Joshua Tree.
That is
Oh,
good.
awesome disc. Awesome disc.
That album literally changed the course of my life. So I didn't even have to think about it. I think the production on that album's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think the songs on that album are great. And I've been listening to it since it came out, and I've never gotten tired of it. So I don't think I would get tired of it for the 3 days that I might last on a desert island.
The 3 days.
In
Guess
the
what? Yeah.
when one of the things I was going to say at the beginning and I forgot was that I would be hard pressed to think that any of our selections were going to match up with any of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet I have Joshua Tree on my list.
Ah.
U2 was one that I definitely thought I have to put on my list and somehow. And I went through their catalog, and there are other. That's what I was talking about. There are other albums that I think have one or two better songs that I like better, but not collectively as a whole album.
That makes sense.
Do I figure? And I know that, you know, on the one hand, there's something on me too that's like it resists the really popular ones. Like, I don't want to go for that one because everybody would say that one, or that one had all the hits on it, so I don't want to choose that one. And yet, Joshua Tree, I'm like, no, this is the best. This is simply the best. Like, there's just no escaping. It might be their most popular. It might be their biggest seller. It might have the most hits on it. But damn, that's because it's just that good. And it sets a tone and a mood that I always appreciate. So yeah, we agree on that one. Interesting. I was surprised. I was thinking, there's no way anybody's going to match. And as soon as you said that, I almost changed one of mine, but I didn't.
Yeah, dang it. That was mine.
I'm like, nope, let's go with it. Mike, what about you?
All right. Mine's going back to 1968, and it is the Beatles album. It is otherwise known as the White Album,
The White
Nice.
which is a very interesting album for me because it's the least Beatles album that there ever was, because they basically all created the song separately from each other. It was the least collaboration. But for me, it's also it's a double disc, and it is every song I know by heart. I know all the words, and it's one that you just could listen to over and over and over again. And, you know, it's just, and you could tell the differences, how much the Beatles had grown as artists. And you could tell truly this is a George song. This is a John song. This is a, Paul song. This is a Ringo song. And it's just like, but the themes they come up with this, you've heard on the radio over and over and over again. And it's just so good. And it spreads. Like, you listen to it and you could be in a down mood, and then all of a sudden Helter Skelter comes on. And it's like, okay, let's get to it now, and everything. And it has, so many other songs on it. Bungalow Bill, Ogla Dee, Ogla Da, and it's so much fun for this album. And for me, it's one of the Beatles at their best and everything, which is kind of surprising, because they just came off of Sgt. Pepper before this, and
which a lot of people for the longest time was considered one of the best albums ever made. Period.
Extremely so. But I also wanted to be greedy and get as much Beatles out there.
I was gonna say, ooh, the first double album. The first
all 5 of your albums going to be Beatles albums?
We'll see.
I was going to say,
my friends.
Man, you'd really have to not only love somebody, an artist in particular, but hate everybody else. If everybody could pick one artist.
Yeah, but to me, it's just such a great album.
It is. It is a great album, and that one was one that I came across, and I was like, maybe, but it didn't ultimately make my list, but it's a good album for sure.
But yeah, because even when William was born, we played, as William was being birthed, we played Blackbird in the delivery room and everything. Wow. So it has special place for me.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And that's important too. I mean, if like you were saying, that was your first Queen album, and I think that goes a long way as well as the memories that are like in each of us. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm glad we're doing this. And I wish we had done this like maybe in our first episode that we'd ever done musically, because this is about what we like and what we don't like. This is probably the most subjective episode we've ever done, which is really cool. I think it gets it out there, and we can let people know like, oh, exactly what we're into and what we're not. Instead of like trying to tackle the Beatles in the first time we tried to which I'm still like, man, can we do a do-over sometime? Maybe we will. But all right, so now I guess we're at round 2. So disc 2. Let's start with you, Ricky.
Well,
two for two.
From my Kiss shirt, I'm a big Kiss fan. So coming in at number 2 is The Police, Synchronicity.
Of course.
Awesome.
I came very close to making it the Police box set, because that's 4 CDs worth of material from all 5 albums.
Yep.
Plus B-sides to singles that were never on an album. I felt, first of all, a little bit like I would be cheating by doing that. And I'm not saying anybody else would be cheating if they do something like that, but just for me personally. But if I chose the box set, it didn't include every single song from Synchronicity.
Right.
And other than the song Mother off of Synchronicity, which is the worst song the Police ever recorded in my mind.
It's pretty bad.
I think if you just take that song out, that is an amazing album start to finish.
Yeah.
And it's the first album I got, and I got 3 copies of it when I first got it, because 3 different people gave it to me.
Wow.
You gotta listen to this. It's so good.
Yeah. And side 2 of Synchronicity was like the first music. I had listened to music before. I'd been into music before. But side 2 of Synchronicity was the first album side that I just really obsessed over.
I could understand that. It's interesting because that was the first Police tour that I saw, and back in Philadelphia, and the Go-Go's opened for them. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. And it was an awesome show. And the Police blew me away. And it was so much fun to be able to see them. Sadly enough, it was their last album, technically.
Wow. Yeah, that's a band that it wasn't the last time they toured, but man, it probably should have been. But yeah, good pick. I have the set that you're referring to. I think is Message in a Box, because I have that. That's what I have. I think that's the only Police song, Police album that I have, or collection that I have. And there's been often times where I've been like, "Ooh, I wish I had more songs from these albums on there." Because it's a sampling of like a lot of their songs rather than the whole complete discography.
Another one I had considered was Every Breath You Take, the singles.
Right.
If I was going to drop it down to one disc, I had thought, well, maybe that would be the disc. But again, then I'm missing a lot of the songs off of Synchronicity.
Yeah. And you're probably not even hearing the best version of the which one is it? What's the one he remade on that one?
Every Breath You Take. Was that it?
No, I think it was Don't Stand So Close to Me.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Such a horrible version.
So
yeah. And I guess the plan was to do all the songs that way, but the band was like, no, we're not doing that, Sting. So So, all right. So that is, we don't match. We're not 2 for 2. Ricky and I are not 2 for 2. So, Michelle, what's your next pick?
Staying in the mid to early 70s, an absolute masterpiece, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John.
Oh, yeah, that's a
great album.
I absolutely can't argue with that choice.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those people who might not be familiar with it, why is that one your pick? What does that have on it? That
it had a ton of singles. It had the title track. It had Saturday Night Fight for Fighting. It had oh God, I'm blanking out because there's so many songs, but so many songs that cross so many genres. The production is just pristine. The amazing drum sounds, the backing vocals that just shimmer like water on a lake. It's just glorious from pretty much start to finish. And I've always loved it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is a great album by a great artist that I don't know gets they made a move about him, so I guess he gets enough credit. I don't think you could call Elton John underrated.
Nothing underrated about that.
I'm not sure if you could call any of these people that we mentioned so far underrated. So it'll be interesting to see as we go if there's any deep cuts for us here with our picks. Bambi, what's your next pick?
Thriller.
Thriller.
Michael Jackson. Awesome.
Another. Well, he's underrated. Michael Jackson was extremely underrated.
And that's a deep cut album too.
Oh yeah,
it's not like really
deep. Was there a track on there that wasn't a top 10 hit? I don't think so.
You know what? I think there was, but
maybe 11. It hit 11 or 12.
Yeah, right.
Because that was huge. I don't know if. I think since then there's probably
Lady in My Life. I don't know if that one was
if there's been a bigger album, but damn, that one set like the goalpost for a long
practically
time.
A greatest hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Absolutely. And we didn't even know it. As it came out, we were just like, oh yeah, that's another hit. That's another hit. That's another hit. And the title track is cool as well. Mm-hmm. Great videos, of course, with all of those songs as well. Mm-hmm. I know that I after Michael Jackson passed away, I remember seeing an interview with someone saying that, while he was alive, especially the last few years that he was alive, there was a lot of, and there still is a lot of controversy around him, which has probably hurt a lot of the music sales in particular. But now that he had passed, it seems like the songs can be free. The songs are free of him now. The albums can exist on their own now, at least have a better chance. I don't know. Do you feel that that's true?
I don't know. I guess maybe different generations aren't aware of it. They don't have that stigma. So yeah, I guess I could see that.
Because at the time, we didn't know, right? So we were oblivious to a lot of that stuff. So at the time, we were just taking it for like, this is really cool music.
Yeah. It still is. It really is good music.
And so it's probably harder for us to shake that off, even It might not be for some people, but that might, when they hear his name, might just instantly go ew, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the
I was
time,
thinking that
I just thought he
actually.
was weird because he only wore one glove.
I guess it was just one sock. Everybody could relate to it.
Who's a lazy dresser? What can you say?
Exactly. He lost one glove, and the rest is history. He left one on the train, and he made history.
It's in the dryer somewhere. Check the link.
The link to it. A really odd thing about, not odd, but the album before Thriller, Off the Wall.
Off the wall.
Mm-hmm. It was huge.
By the normal standards that we lived by until Thriller came out, Off the Wall was a huge, huge record. And we couldn't have imagined anything bigger than that.
Nope.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, because he that's when he crossed over, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, he was kind of already crossing over, but I mean, he really crossed over from into the pop charts with that one. And then Thriller, he just blew every chart away. Like, I just it was crazy. Even the country and western, it was just amazing. Mike, what about you? What's your next pick?
Mine is going to be a best of albums. Actually, it is The Cure, Staring at the
Yeah.
And I discovered The Cure back in 1984, and my senior year of high school. And it was interesting because I was dating this girl who was a punk rock person, and I had heard of The Clash. I had heard of a lot of the different Brit bands, but I had never heard of The Cure before. And she had pictures of this guy with hair out to here and everything on her refrigerator and posters. And it's like, who is this guy? And she says, "You've never heard of The Cure?" And it's like, no. And it's like, I've heard of the Cult, but not The Cure. And it was like, and so she said, "Oh, you're in for it." And she played me Kiss. I think it was one of like Japanese Dreams or something like that. And it was just an amazing, amazing album. And I fell in love with the band. And there was not a song by them I didn't like. And it was awesome. And everything they put out after that, I started picking up, of course. And just going to finally see them in concert not too long ago was just amazing for me. But, when they came out with the best of, Staring at the Sea, and it was just like literally every song was like everything I loved. And it was just great. They literally took, everything, and it's like when you listen to the Smiths, half the time you want to put a gun in your mouth, where when you listen to The Cure, you were like, these are lullabies, these are folk tales, these are true adventure stories. And that's what I loved about The Cure. Robert Smith is all goth and everything and out there, but he is a storyteller and everything, and that's what I fell in love with. And that was pretty awesome about it. And The Cure, there was nothing out there like The Cure. And that's what closest to it was, like Susie and the Banshees and everything.
Which,
yeah. They seem to be popping up everywhere now, too.
Exactly.
Robert Smith used to be in Susie and the Banshees.
Well,
He was for a little while. Yeah, after he quit The Cure and then went back to The Cure.
Exactly.
Like they did a lot of that. And I was lucky enough to discover The Cure pretty early on in the early 80s as well. And they didn't make my list. They came close, but I, like you, Mike, I couldn't. There's so many great songs, but I couldn't think of an album together that just wouldn't like as you said, the Smiths kind of want to make you put a gun to your head. Well, in my mind, the Cure kind of want to make you just sort of slit your throat very slowly. Not to say that that's a bad thing.
I was like, man.
It's just a bad thing. And it's not that it's a bad thing, because you just want to like.
Not that it's a bad thing.
You just want to kind of go,
but in a good way,
and lull yourself to like to oblivion, listening to this, especially like Disintegration or something like that. Like, I mean, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. but there is morosity to it, I guess, if that's a word, that is great. But I think if I was stranded on a desert island, I'd be like, too much. But yes, and that's the thing. Like you said, they do some songs, Ricky, as you pointed out, that are like kind of poppy and up. So like Love Cats or Friday I'm in Love or that kind of thing. So yes, if you did have a greatest hits, that would include those as well. And then you could sort of, balance that out a bit.
You hold off from putting the razor to your throat.
Just a little bit. Maybe not go as deep.
Okay. Folks, that's Mike Gordon who said that, not Mike Faber. So.
Is it the song he's singing about a spider? Or is it that lullaby?
Lullaby is awesome. Spider-Man. It's awesome.
At the school, we ended up having to teach some of the kids the songs, and they had never heard of The Cure before, and we ended up creating a lot of Cure fans because of that song.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Got a freaking awesome bass line.
Yep.
Oh, and they're amazing musicians, and that's a reason that when people think goth, like they're the band that comes up. Like it's that they represent that whole kind of movement, and they're right in front of it, and yeah, they're unbelievable. And I've seen them live. We've seen them live, and I'm not saying that anybody should not see them live or listen to their records or anything like that.
No, at 65.
I was just going with the metaphor.
At 65, Robert Smith is still out there performing and sounding better than ever, truthfully. And you know what? He put on almost a 3-hour show, and each night after night after night. That's just amazing.
Yeah. I don't think they get enough credit for how talented musicians they are. So yeah, good call there. I could not make a list of favorite albums without including one of my favorite artists, which is Prince. I've probably talked about him a number of times on the show. I could probably take 5 Prince albums with me on the island, and I'd be fine. So it was very difficult for me to whittle it down to just one Prince album. But when I looked at it, I had to go with the one that probably means the most to me, and that's Sign of the Times. Not just because it's a double album,
nice,
but because this is after the huge success that he has with 1999 and Purple Rain, and with the Revolution and everything like that. He breaks off with the Revolution, and then he goes out because he wants to do his own thing. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, let's see how good you are just by yourself. And he comes out with Sign of the Times, which is just one of I think there's not a bad track on it. Not everything is a hit, but every song I think is a winner on that too. And he does so much of it himself. And he's not just talking about which he does really well, sex, love, and all of that, everything that goes into that, but he's talking about other things. He feels like he has something to say, maybe for the first time ever. And this is a guy who did Controversy, but also did Dirty Mind, right? This has got the best of every side of him. And I loved the album when it first came out. And, I got sort of sidetracked by some of the other stuff he did. And then when about a few years ago, they put a re-release of this album out, and it was remastered and everything like that. And I listened again with almost new ears, and I was like, yeah, this is the best. This is the best that I think Prince gets. I mean, there's better, you could argue that Purple Rain or something like that is a better album, but this to me is just the best of Prince. So that was no question for me, even though I had to whittle it down. Like I said, I could pick 4 other albums of his, including he has 2 greatest hits that I was like, okay, that's an easy way out. But Sign of Times does it for me. So, all right. So now we're going to go with round 3, third album here on the list. We're almost halfway there. Mike, we'll start with you.
All right. Mine is going to be real easy. In the late, I guess, 90s, small little movie by Quentin Tarantino came out called Pulp Fiction, and had one of the most amazing soundtracks, literally starting with Dick Dale's Mary Lou and it is just awesome, literally. And I love how they, literally put in cuts of the actual text from the movie and everything into the soundtrack.
That's
so
always
they
fun.
open with it. I love you, honey bunny. I love you, so it's pretty amazing. And, they have the Statler brothers counting, flowers on the wall. They have, cool. They basically have, Get Down, Jungle Boogie. And, it's just really awesome. But then they also have Urge Overkill's, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, which is a Neil Diamond remake they made for the movie and everything, which is pretty amazing. And it's just, Dusty Springfield. And it's just so many amazing artists on this. And that's the one thing I always love about a Quentin Tarantino movie is the soundtracks.
And what was this movie called?
Yeah, it was called
it's one of his more obscure ones.
Yeah, that's it. So
History.
Exactly. It's pretty awesome.
Pulp Friction. That's right.
Pulp Friction. Exactly.
Do you recommend the movie or just the soundtrack?
Just the soundtrack. The movie, worst. One of my favorite movies ever. So it's one of those soundtracks. You could just, if you're in a grumpy mood or something, put this on, and it is just smooth all the way through, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Soundtracks are, and yeah, Tarantino is definitely one of the best gatherers of music for his soundtracks. I think almost every single one of his soundtracks is a winner. I have almost all of them, I think, in my collection, and they're all great. Oh, yeah. He manages to find, it's kind of like what he does with actors too. He manages to find obscure actors or like songs that not people are familiar with, but then make them huge because he puts them in very memorable situations where you can't not see the scene while you're listening to the song ever again.
Exactly.
Which I guess is bad or good depending on your point of view. But
well, exactly. And it's interesting too, because I think the only other director I could think of that comes close with that is James Gunn with his soundtracks that he does.
That's he's right up there as well. John Hughes was known for that too.
Yeah.
And a few other people too. I mean, there's some really great soundtracks out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if another one doesn't make it on someone's list. Maybe, who knows? Anyway, Michelle, what you got for your next pick?
Kind of a deep cuts album. It was tempting to put one on here called Anthology 1968 to 85, but I went with Todd Rundgren's Nearly Human.
Good album. Great album.
Again, the first one that I heard from him has a song on there called Can't Stop Running that I just adore. I think I adore every track on it. Like I said, it was tempting to bring all the hits, but I have a soft spot for this one, and it's coming with me.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see Todd on your list as well, since we've seen him like 1,400 times.
Not as much as Davey.
No. But no, probably. But it was close for a long time. But yeah. So but yeah, we don't see Todd every time he comes.
No.
But yeah, we have seen him a lot, and so I was not surprised. And yeah, that is a good album as well. And is that one from what era is that from?
It's 1989.
1989. Okay, I wasn't sure because he goes way back. Like you said, late 60s is when he started. Yeah. So, Bambi, what about you?
This is going to be one that not many people are going to know, but October Rust by Typo Negative.
Oh, interesting.
Because that one hits home for me. That one. Yeah, that one. I don't know much to say about it other than I love that album so much.
Well, that one is a deep cut for me. I'm not familiar with. I know I'm familiar with the band a little bit, but not that particular album. What are we talking about? What kind of music? What are we talking about in terms of what it makes you feel?
As far as typo negative albums go, it's probably the prettiest of their albums. It's the most heavy on the love song theme. And I mean, for them, they're all kind of love songs, believe it or not, or breakup songs. They have a lot of breakup songs, but that one's just very, very beautiful. I don't know.
Secretly, some of the songs are about his cat.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a lot of them actually. Like one of his songs on Bloody Kisses is about his cat. He said nobody wants to hear a 6'8" guy crying about his cat, so he turned it into a love song.
Awesome.
Yeah, but
That's very cool. I for my next pick, this is you can sort of consider this a soundtrack album in a lot of ways. And this is one that I went like back and forth. This was probably my pick that I was like, in 15 minutes, it would be something else. But that's nothing against the album, because I love the album a lot. I have played this album a lot. And it is actually a Queen album. And it is the Queen album, A Kind of Magic.
Cool.
It is got the title, not the title track, but most of the songs on there were written for the movie Highlander, the first Highlander movie. And the song that first appears on the album is from the movie Iron Eagle. So a lot of the tracks on here are related to movies, but it's not really considered a soundtrack. But it's each one of the band members contributed, and it's just a lot of very powerful music to me. It's one that I crank up to 11, so to speak. It's not. I could have gone either way on about 3 other Queen albums too. But my love for Queen came a little bit later than yours. I think I was introduced to them from The Game. I think that was the first Queen album that I bought. And that one almost made my list as well. That one I could have chose instead of this one too. But when it came down to it, it's like, oh, what do I feel like listening to right now? This is Kind of Magic was the one for me.
Cool.
I'd like to say a little something about that album.
Sure.
My father and I saw Highlander in New York City. And that was before I was really into music. And my father and I both loved the soundtrack so much that we spent years trying to find it. And nobody ever told me, this kid going into record stores saying, hey, do you have the soundtrack for Highlander?
Oh,
Nobody
no.
ever thought to tell me you need this Queen album because it's pretty much the soundtrack for this. Nobody said that.
Wow.
So my father and I never found that album.
Oh,
Wow. I know that there was a imported album for Highlander that did contain some of the tracks on it. But that was one that I didn't find until later. And it was way expensive because it was imported. But you're right. They could have done a better job at saying, hey, this album is the soundtrack to Highlander. They had done so much. They had done so well doing the soundtrack to Flash Gordon that I'm really surprised that both the movie studio and the record studio didn't really promote that album as much as they could have. So yeah, that's
the first album the first soundtrack that I ever sought out.
Wow. That's cool. Well, Ricky, I think it's your pick. You're the next pick here for round 3.
Yes. This one was a very, very close neck and neck between 2 Pink Floyd albums. Wish You Were Here and Animals. And I think I'm going to have to go with Animals.
Okay.
But by the time this show is over, it might be Wish You Were Here.
Right.
Whichever one I pick, I would regret not having the other one.
Now, have we established that there's weed on this island? because Pink Floyd is definitely one of those where you're like, okay, is there weed on the island? Because that, that would fit,
Yeah, that
right?
has no bearing on my decision at all.
I'm sure it does. So why that album in particular by Pink Floyd?
Both Wish You Were Here and Animals are albums that were kind of go-to albums for me throughout high school and college, just when I felt overwhelmed. And they were kind of calming, I guess. And I imagine if I were stuck on a desert island, I would be a little bit overwhelmed. And I would probably want one of those albums to listen to just kind of mellow out.
I thought you were going to use it to scare the wildlife or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Floyd, and they were big when I was growing up. I think the only Floyd album I actually have, though, is The Wall, of course, right? So that's one everybody has, right?
Actually, I think I might have all of them.
That doesn't surprise me.
Floyd.
Which one's pink?
Exactly.
All right. I think that's everybody's third round, right?
Yep.
Right there?
Okay.
Okay. So now we're getting down to the last two. I went with, for my fourth pick, I went with something really mellow. Probably one of the most mellow thing on my list, but it's one of the best. I really, really, really love female vocalists. I love blues. I love sort of jazz, bossa nova, that kind of stuff. And this might be one of the most recent ones too. That's the other thing too. I was really hard pressed to find some recent stuff that would make my list. But this isn't even that recent really. It's about, I don't know, 15 years old now or so, maybe even 20. But it is the first album from Norah Jones, Come Away With Me.
Oh, wonderful album. Wonderful. She's like silk. Listen, her voice is just so amazing.
I listened to this album and I said, I have just fallen in love with this woman. I've fallen in love with this album. I've fallen in love, period. I mean, it's just like a dream. It's just like a beautiful, lovely dream. It's so well done. It was so well made, and what an outstanding first album to come out. So that's my pick for round 4. What have you got, Michelle?
Well, it's called Soundtrack, but it is not a soundtrack. It's Soundtrack 1978 to 2019 by Midge Ure.
Oh, awesome.
If you don't know who he is, he's the guitarist and lead vocalist for Ultravox. He also wrote Do They Know It's Christmas? Helped to spearhead Live Aid and Band Aid. Double CD still leaves off one of my all-time favorite songs, which is something called Just For You, but I had to get my maximum Midge, so this crams in Ultravox and Midge. And
so this combines his music from different eras and different bands and solo
albums, Ultravox, some Japan, some collaborations. So yeah, maximum Midge.
Yep. Awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, we're getting into some more obscure stuff now. I mean, not mine was, but
Right.
but Bambi, what's your next pick?
Pretty Hate Machine by Nine Inch Nails.
Oh,
Ooh,
wow.
Good
yeah.
album. Great. Nice.
I have something angry on that, island.
Yeah, that's some angry.
When you're trying to crack open that freaking coconut that won't open because you're really thirsty.
you could really crack some firewood with that album. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm glad Nine Inch Nails made the list because we got a lot of Hall of Famers, actually Rock and Roll Hall of Famers that we've mentioned so far. But yeah, they are. That's incredible. Awesome. Ricky, what about you?
This album to me might as well have been a greatest hits album. It was The Doors' first album. Because even though they had a lot of hits later, obviously, the first album, I like just about every song on there. And I thought about greatest hits Doors albums, but they would surely leave off some of the ones that I really like from that first album. And they'd probably include the one that I like the least from the first album. So I might as well pick the first album.
I think that's one of the few times that one of us has selected an album that was produced and released way before we were born. So how did you discover this album and the band?
I don't remember the first time I was aware of the Doors. They're one of those bands that it kind of feels like they've always been around. And I guess for my entire life, they've always been around. But I think that was the first album I had by the Doors. And every album I got after that, I felt kind of like, yeah, this isn't as good as that other one. So they were a band. When I first got that album, I remember thinking, yeah, this is a good album. And then maybe I got another Doors album and I thought that other one was better. So it made me want to go back to the first one again. And that was like every time I got a Doors album. And they all had great songs, but they all also had songs that I wasn't as into. So I'm, I guess, lucky I found that one first, just because. And it's probably in high school, somebody just was talking about different bands I should know about, and the Doors popped up. But the first real band that I was in was heavily influenced by the Doors.
Cool.
And the singer who wrote most of the songs for this band that I was in, Jim Morrison, was a huge influence on him. So I kind of feel like I was in a band that was like a knockoff of the Doors as my first real band. So I think that's part of why they mean so much to me, is because when I started learning how to play music with other guys in a band, that was sort of our template.
Gotcha. Very cool. That's awesome. I noticed when I was going through most of my albums too, it's amazing to me how many times I selected a band or an artist's first album. And even though some of the albums that they came out with afterwards, I liked a lot of songs from them, but it's amazing to me how many first albums I was like, nope, this one can't be beat. Nope, this one can't be beat. No, I mean, in the case of the one I just said, Norah Jones, I liked a lot of her other subsequent stuff, but man, that first album, there's something about sometimes, I mean, I guess when when the first album comes out and everything is magic, it's not to say that it's diminished later, but there's something about a first album that just is so special a lot of times.
You know, a lot of times bands have had 5 years to write their first album and 6 months or a week to write their second album.
That's a good point.
There's also that need to get whatever it is out. And once it's out, then it's just like, how do I capture that magic again?
Yeah, I think though, really, it's just you have so much time to work on that first album. You may have written 3 times as many songs as you needed, and you're picking the best of the songs. And then for that second album, maybe there's a few that didn't make the first album that you already had written. But a lot of bands have said by the time they got to their third album, they had 3 weeks off of tour, that they had to write, record, and release an album, and they didn't have anything left that was any good. And so they just felt pressured and rushed.
Yeah, and that's why you only see that's why you see bands only with one really good album, and then after that they slowly fall down because of that.
Well, the studios get involved too, because they're like, the record companies like, we want this, and this. We don't want that, and that. And when they were doing their first album, nobody told them that. They were just doing what they wanted
because they didn't know it would be a big album.
Exactly.
We want another single from you. We want this. We want that. So
we want what you did on that first album, or we want what you did to make us all that money. We want that again.
You remember those 4 singles? Can you rewrite them so they sound a little different, but not really?
So we can legally release them again and make a lot of money. Mike, what about you? What's your next pick?
Okay, this is going to be a no shocker to many people out there, but my second album, my number 2 album on the list, is actually the first really mainstream album by the Grateful Dead. It's called American Beauty. And
I'm shocked.
I know. Isn't it shocking on this one? This is actually their most known album from the early 70s, because this is the one where they actually had trucking on it, which was their only, until Touch of Grey came out in the 80s, it was their only top 10 hit.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And it was really interesting that, this album came out, they were forced to record it because their manager ran off with all their money. Basically, they signed them to a deal with Warner Brothers and, re-signed them up, and the Dead didn't want to. And basically, they, were forced, they were out of money. So the Warner Brothers said, here, record it. Do you have more songs? And so they scrambled to get this all together. And they recorded this in 2 months. And literally, it's one of their classic albums, because they put out Working Man's Dead, the same year, because that was, and so, because in 1970, they came out with Working Man's Dead first, which was mostly all bluegrass type music and, folk music and such, where this was more rock, folk, and, some blues all included.
Is Box of Rain on
Box of Rain opens this one. And it's literally, you've heard, for Grateful Dead fans, you've heard, most of the songs that are on this. It starts with Box of the Rain, then it has Friend of the Devil and Sugar Magnolia, and then it has Ripple and Broken Down Palace, and then ends with Trucking, which is just, it's song after song after song. And they had, people from the Jefferson Airplane sit in with them because they needed, some extra musicians. They also had Crosby, Stills and Nash doing background vocals. And it's just, so it's just amazing. And that they did this all. And, so they had some of these songs playing around, because with the way the Dead always worked was they played the songs live many years before they actually recorded them on album. Like Touch of Grey, they had been playing since like 1975.
Really?
And, yeah. And so it's pretty awesome, stuff with the Dead and everything with that. And it's just, and this is one of their, most rushed albums, but it's one of the best known for that.
I played that album for my father in high school. He heard the band name and was like, I'm not interested in listening to this at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I played it for him, and he said, this is not what I was expecting. This is really good.
Exactly.
And I think he was expecting Metallica or Black Sabbath or something.
Yeah.
But
exactly. Grateful Dead, oh my God, that's heavy metal. No. Far from it. So I'm glad the opposite on it. So we're fine. So it's cool.
Yeah. Well, there might be patchouli on the island as well. So
there's no shower, so you have to have something. So.
Exactly. You only have to wash in salt water. That's
exactly. So, but yeah, so no, this is, and to me, it's like one of those albums I could just listen to over and over again out of all the Dead albums. There's a couple other ones that are just as good, a lot of their live stuff, but this is amazing. And then, what they went into, like with Europe 72 right after this, stuff like that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we're going to close out the fourth round, second to last. And this one was, when I was looking, I have a weird journey when it comes to my history of listening to music back for most of my life. But there was a time in the early 80s or so where if people asked me what kind of music I listen to, I said, I like music without words. Which is not entirely true, but it was very much true because I listened to movie soundtracks a lot and classical music too. But I listened to movie soundtracks. I think most of my record collection was movie soundtracks, movie scores to be precise. And the key guy that was part of my collection was John Williams. And the soundtrack, so I had to pick a soundtrack here, and I don't know, maybe it's just because of the way movies, no, it's not. There's no other song, I think, that moves me more hearing live than the theme song to Raiders of the Lost Ark when it's played by an orchestra. I mean, Michelle can attest to it. We saw John Williams. I've seen John Williams conduct it twice in my lifetime. I've been that lucky. Never with the London Symphony Orchestra, but with other orchestras, and it's just as powerful. It's in my opinion, it's the best movie theme song ever written. But the rest of the soundtrack is so solid too. I'm constantly like, if I listen to the soundtrack, I can picture what's going on on the screen in my head because it matches so perfectly. There are theme songs to all the characters. There's a theme song to the Well of Souls. There's a theme song to places, to set pieces. Marion's theme is one of my favorite love themes that's ever been written. I think it's just a brilliant soundtrack. And I had to include at least one soundtrack on this out of this 5. And in my mind, there's no better one than Raiders of the Lost Ark. It took a long time for them to release a actual complete soundtrack. The one that we had for decades after the movie came out was just random songs put together and called a soundtrack. It wasn't actually music cues from the movie, but they finally did put together a complete one, and that's the one I would select. But the other one is solid too because it's just great music. And as I mentioned last week when we talked about the new Indiana Jones movie, I was glad that John Williams was able to come back one last time to do that music because he's the best at it. So,
Good choice.
absolutely, thank you. So I have a soundtrack, not quite a soundtrack that you were talking about, Mike, but I had a soundtrack on there as well. All right, so our final discs that we're choosing, and I don't know. To me, I'm not going in any particular order, so I haven't really counted up or counted down. But Mike, I understand that you're counting up, so I'm kind of curious as what is at the number 1 spot because I think you've been counting up. I think.
Oh, I have. This is also not going to be much of a surprise to folks who've listened to the podcast in the past and everything, because we recently did an episode on this band. We're talking Murmur by REM is my number.
That's a great album.
And it is it's the first official album because Chronic Town was their EP that they put out first, and that just celebrated their 40th anniversary. Oh God, I feel old. And it's an amazing band. You know, you had the 2 Mikes, you had Bill Berry and you had Peter Buck, and it's just an awesome album. You know, a lot of people who are REM fans know Radio Free Europe, but also, you know, there's just so many great songs on that disc. And, you know, it took everyone by surprise because no one expected it. You know, B-52s were the big band at the time from Athens, but then REM really put Athens on the map, which is really cool. And it's just awesome. And, you know, you had, you know, albums and songs like West of Fields, Talk About the Passion, you know, and each song is different on this album.
Was Orange Crush on there?
No, that was Green.
That
was
Green, that's way down.
Okay.
88.
Yeah. So it's
Was Don't Go Back to Rockdale there?
No, Rockville's on their second album. It's on Reckoning. But it's just a great album. And you have, you know, so much great stuff on the album. You know, you have Pilgrimage, you have Perfect Circle, you have, you know, We Walk, and West of Fields, like I said, Catapult, 9x9. And, you know, it's awesome because, you know, Mike Stipe at this point was very shy up on stage, and he didn't even turn half the time to face the audience and stuff. And it was for a while, it seemed like Peter Buck was going to be the front man for the band, but then Mike Stipe finally broke out, and, you know,
That's an understatement.
yes, literally. Our friend Sue, you know, because Judy and Sue were at Georgia at UGA at the time, and Sue had such a crush on Mike Stipe, and everyone kept on saying, "You're not his type," and everything. So it was always interesting, and, you know, it's the stories you hear, and you still hear them to this day about, you know, REM playing in an old church, or REM playing here, or, at the pool hall or in the football field, or, and it's just like, and people, it's awesome. And it's Athens folklore, and it's pretty awesome. And I got to go see them when I was 16 for the first time. I got snuck into a bar in Georgetown, and it was one of the most eye-opening concerts I had ever been to. So
REM was the first concert I ever went to.
Really?
Yep.
That's
I got
awesome.
tickets so that I could go with this girl I liked, and she went to rehab, so I went with JJ.
But at least you still went. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was
that's my number one, dude.
Absolutely. Very cool. Very cool. Michelle, what's your last pick?
Well, the joke was that it was their greatest hits album, but it wasn't. It was their first album. The second one on my list, produced by Roy Thomas Baker. It's the Cars' first album.
Yeah, it's a good one. There you go.
Yep, I have to have that 1, 2, 3 punch of Bye Bye Love moving in stereo and all mixed up. Gotta have it.
Yeah, that's good.
Very cool.
That's a good one.
Very cool. Very cool.
That is a good one, because that's one you could listen to over and over again, because and I love how the songs just roll right into each other on that, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep.
Bambi, what's your last pick?
All right, it's another one that nobody's going to know but me, really.
Awesome.
Again, that's okay.
Well, it's also picking another one by the band again, because it's the flagship album for them, and that's the one that got me into the band, and that is Bloody Kisses by the band Typo Negative.
I know that
again.
album.
Well, yeah, because I've heard by the band that I've seen the most. I think
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was my band. So anyway,
that is awesome.
It's what put them on the map, and it's also the band it's the album that somebody introduced me to their music by letting me listen to them.
What about the album really moved you and everything?
It started with I had never heard Peter Steele's the singer. I had never heard his voice before. It was two of my friends were arguing over if they could have anybody's voice, who would it be? And they were arguing over it would be either Peter Steele or Ozzy Osbourne. And I was like, well, I know who Ozzy is, but who's Peter Steele? And they're like, you've never heard? Hold on. And they put on the album Bloody Kisses. And it's if you skip the first track, they're notorious for their first track on their albums being a joke. So you got to kind of get to the second track before you actually get to music. But the second track actually starts with Peter Steele talking, like just saying something. And it's like, whoa, what's this? That moved things. Hello, puberty.
Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm feeling something down. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Very
awesome.
cool.
Very cool. Yes, that is awesome. And is that 2 from one band on your 5?
Yeah, it is.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's like, the 2 albums. I'm like, if I never got to hear them again, that would be heartbreaking.
That's outstanding, though. That's really cool. Ricky, what's your last pick?
Just to clarify, I started with number 1. The Joshua Tree was my number 1.
Gotcha.
Synchronicity number 2.
We're all going all different directions in life.
It was difficult for me when I got to number 5. It was difficult for me after number 2, honestly, but it was difficult for me by the time I got to number 5 because there were just so many albums. And that's why I thought maybe we were doing a top 10. So
okay, Casey.
It's one. This is one of 4 that it very easily could have been, but I'm gonna go with Yes as Tales from Topographic Oceans.
Awesome.
It's I don't even think it's a lot of Yes fans' favorite albums by Yes, but
it's a good album though.
It's a double album. It was probably one of the first really big albums that I got into. And I didn't find it until late. I was into Yes in high school, but I didn't have that album. And a friend of mine in college was listening to it in the car, and I was like, man, what is this? This is a great album. and he told me about it, and I went and got it and listened to the whole thing. I like the entire album. It's just it's so big. It's such a big album. I have, four other albums or three other albums that it easily could have been at number 5, but I'm going to go with Tales from Topographic Oceans.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. I must admit, I am not as familiar with them, but knowing you, that doesn't surprise me.
There wasn't a single. There was no single.
That's cool. They're in the Hall of Fame, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
I figured.
Yes.
Yeah. My pick for my last track or my last album is maybe people could consider this a cheat. It might be, it is a compilation, and it's multiple discs, and but I couldn't go any other way. And this is Sound and Vision by David Bowie.
Cool.
One of his
I was
albums.
looking at all the early Bowie stuff that I love so much, from Space Oddity to Heroes to Ziggy Stardust and all of that, which is so amazing. I just found it difficult to select any one of those in particular. And Sound Division is not a comprehensive, complete discography of that period, but it's got a lot of tracks. And what to me is amazing about it also is that I think it stands on its own. It takes the tracks and actually puts them all together in a way that you're not automatically thinking of the next song on the original album that is going to come next. You're not going, oh, that just feels wrong because it's not on the original album. Instead, this collection just feels right. And even it's got B-sides, it's got different versions of songs, which I've learned to love. But it's more than just a sampling. It's just a great collection of music. I mean, if I was fortunate enough to see Bowie play a few times, and if he had just played these songs from this, which I think he did on one tour, which I missed, but if he had just done these songs, I would have been more than happy. There's definitely later Bowie that I love a lot, but this particular period of Bowie from the first, I don't know, decade or 15, 20 years that he was doing music, I think is the best music that's almost ever been made. It's just so good. And one of the reasons why I love him so much. And I think the reason why I haven't picked a lot of his later albums is because I just haven't caught up to them yet. He's so before our time that I think in about 10 years I might be able to grasp like some of the stuff he was talking about. Because
is that your number 1 or your number 5 choice?
I did not rank them.
I did.
No order.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just went in order. And the fact that when you said I was wondering if I was going to do them in any kind of order, but then once you mentioned Joshua Tree, I'm just like, well, I'm going to piggyback off that and then screw my order because I'm just going to go with whatever I have here. Because it's hard for me to rank any of these over the others because it's all a what am I in the mood for? And they're all great, right? They all are just great. This is great music that we're talking about here. And I think all of us have picked music that, if we're stuck on an island, not so bad. It's not going to be so bad. And I haven't missed anybody, right? We're all done?
We're all done.
We're all done. I found it really difficult when I was picking mine to pick something more modern. Most of the stuff that I picked is stuff that I've discovered, music I discovered in my teenage years in the 80s. Did you guys find that as well? Because I just found that I just feel like that's the time where music made maybe for me most of an impact.
I have a couple of my honorable mentions, which we'll be doing in a little bit for our YouTube people. So a little hint for people to be watching us on YouTube. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. That we'll be talking about in a few. But I have some that are probably within the last 10 years or so. So
there's a couple of ones that I picked I've chosen as well that are from the past 15 or so years as well. But they are not the ones that hit me in that age. much. The albums that have hit me like when I was a teenager, those are the ones that have stayed with me. And I feel like I'm over 50 years old. If I'm not sick of those albums by now, I'm probably never going to be. Right?
Okay.
I had one that came out since 2000 that it was one of the contenders for number 5 on my list.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you ask me my list tomorrow, it might be number 5.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you ask me this tomorrow, my 5 would be a little bit different too, I think. There are some things that are probably going to be the same no matter what, but they're all going to be in contention. The ones that I mentioned today. And any other observations that anybody else got when they were making their lists?
I love how it was so different and everything.
Yeah, we only had one match.
Yep.
And that was surprising. And I almost bowed out of it. I was like, oh, I can't pick it. I'm going to go with Unforgettable Fire. No, just kidding.
That would have been a great choice too.
Absolutely. And well, there's a couple others too. It's certainly not their only great album, that's for sure.
Right.
But anyway, well, cool. Well, I hope this helped a lot of people if they are planning to be stranded on a desert island at some point. I hope this helps them select maybe their playlists, or if there's certainly songs on here or albums that people have not familiar with. I hope they connect to them through Spotify, streaming, however they're getting their music, or buy them on vinyl, because I think every single one of ours is available on vinyl. I even owned some of mine on vinyl back in the day, and I still have them, I think. Some of them anyway. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, guys. I'm glad we were able to do this and talk about some of our favorite stuff.
Awesome. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back to close out the show. Okay, YouTube folks, this is as promised, the bonus section, and boy, we got some good stuff for you folks. This is our honorable mentions. We're going to do this a little bit quicker because we'll just have people read off what they have. We're not going to do like, oh, this track and this track and this track or anything, because, you could talk real quickly about the album and everything. We don't want to have the YouTube people here for another hour and a half or something with, the number of albums, because I've got right now 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 songs on my honorable mention. So, so I think, most
I have
of
30. Is that too much?
No, not at all. You have to read them just like this, Mikey. So it's perfect. It's perfect.
Like the FedEx guy.
Exactly. So I'm going to actually start with Mike to actually go off his list.
Yeah, I'm not going to list. I did have it boiled down to... What's that?
Not all 30?
No, I'm not going to list all 30. I did have a list of like under 40 that I was like trying to whittle it down. But really quick, some of them, the highlights on here that almost made my top 5 were American Made Music Strip by Rob Zombie.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh,
that's one
Backdoor Slam with Live for Bonnaroo. An amazing live album. We mentioned Davey. We've seen him more than anybody else, I think, and that's because when he was with Backdoor Slam and when he's been by himself, I love his albums. His music is great. I almost picked one of those, but if you really love Davey and you want to listen to Davey, you have to hear him live because his guitar solos are amazing, and so it has to be a live album. Speaking of soundtracks, the Crow soundtrack, I think, is one of my favorite songs put together of music. Cure's on that, of course. It's a great gothic. Yeah, if you're in that goth mood, put in the Crow soundtrack. Dead Man's Party by Oingo Boingo.
Excellent album. Yeah, that's on my list too.
The heavy metal soundtrack and Led Zeppelin 1 are both like those are rockin' albums and different, very different, of course, but they are ones that I love absolutely. And Led Zeppelin 1 is my favorite Led Zeppelin album. It's so bluesy. I love that as well. And last but not least, I couldn't believe I even didn't make, and there was a time in my life I wouldn't imagine that this guy wouldn't have made my top 5 at all, but I guess times change, and he's making my honorable mentions now, and that's Peter Gabriel, and so is one of my favorite albums. Again, it's poppy, it was popular, et cetera, but it's so good. And yeah, it's an amazing album.
Awesome. Good list, my friend. Michelle.
I'll just run through 4 real quick. Van Morrison from the mid 80s, one called Poetic Champions Compose. That's how I kind of got into Van Morrison. Fleetwood Mac Rumors. I feel kind of basic saying that, but there was a reason.
Such a fantastic album.
The Waterboys, Fisherman's Blues, and just to be greedy, I will bring the entire box set.
I don't blame you at all.
And Bare Naked Ladies, Gordon.
Oh, fantastic. Gordon was such a great album. And that's why we did an episode on it and everything. Mm-hmm. Because again, that it was so groundbreaking for a band like that. And it's pretty interesting. And that one has aged very, very well, which is really cool. All right, Ricky.
Led Zeppelin 1, 2, 4, and Houses of the Holy.
There we go.
I can't believe my list included no Zeppelin, but there you have it.
Awesome.
Black Sabbath 1 and We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll. Mike, you had said American made music to strip by. I think mine would probably be, what was the first Rob Zombie solo album?
Hellbilly Deluxe.
That's on mine. Yeah, that
one's good.
That was really close. The most modern album on my list, which right up until you got to me was going to be my number 5, was Calabrese Traveling Vampire Show.
Yeah,
nice.
That's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to that album on tour so much that the rest of my band knows the album well.
It's a good album.
It is a good album.
We didn't complain on it.
And the other one that came very close to making the list was Gentle Giant's first album.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Awesome.
I'm surprised you like Starless, King Crimson Starless.
The great album, but it's not in my top 5.
Nope, totally
top
understand.
10 maybe.
Very cool. All right, Bambi, ready?
All right, I only have a few in here. Simon and Garfunkel's Greatest Hits.
Fantastic album.
Yeah, you can't go wrong there.
Yeah, Ziggy Stardust. Are you the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust? That was
another one. Yep.
Neon Trees, Habits. I like that one.
That's a great album.
The Moody Blues, On the Threshold of a Dream.
Nice.
I like that one. And Muse, Absolution.
Gotcha. Ooh, that's yeah.
Some newer than a lot.
Yeah, no. I'm like, ooh, that's a new band. New, I say, but they're like 25 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
That album's from like the 2005, 2009, somewhere around there. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Sure. No, that's not bad. Those are all good lists. All right, here's my honorable mention. Sit back and relax, folks. It's going to take all right. Electric Light Orchestra, New World Order.
Oh, yes.
Great album.
Yes.
Nirvana, Nevermind.
Oh, yeah,
Ben Folds Live.
Oh, that's a good one.
Ben Folds.
Yeah.
Boingo Boingo, Dead Man's Party. But we could also replace that also with Boingo Alive, which is also a great album. 10,000 Maniacs in My Tribe.
Nice.
Bruce Springsteen, 1975 to 85 live.
Nice.
That's like a 6-disc set. So
that thing, I remember being when that thing sold like crazy. People were in line for days.
Lined up overnight to get that because it was the first time Springsteen was live on album or cassette.
Yes, that was a huge seller.
When I worked in the record stores, our manager, it was right before Christmas, our manager had to go to the warehouse and get more. Mm-hmm. And he just stood there and people walked up.
Taking
just walked up to him.
Box, probably.
I'd never seen anything
Yeah, he
like
just
that.
held his arms out and people, yeah.
Exactly. And I remember, they had it was, because that was a true box set. That was like, yeah. And everything. And it was awesome. Johnny Cash live at Folsom Prison.
Nice one.
And then we also have Talking Heads, Stop Making Sense, and Old Crow Medicine Show. Old Crow, that's their first album, Old Crow Medicine Show. A lot of people know that album because Darius Rucker remade Wagon Wheel and everything. And
wasn't the Old Crow Medicine Show just finishing the Bob Dylan song Wagon Wheel?
Well, basically what it was is, no, Bob Dylan had a lyric, Rock Me Mama Like a Wagon Wheel, but he never did anything with it. And he was just playing some music to it, and Ketch Secord, who is the lead singer, heard it on a road trip or something, and he started writing all the lyrics around that. And he actually went to Bob Dylan and asked permission to use it and everything, and gave Bob Dylan co-writing, for it and everything, which is pretty cool. Then the last one, of course, is the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou soundtrack.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
And everything. And no Weird Al is on this list, which is pretty.
Weird Al 3D was one that I forgot to mention that was on my list at one point, and not for the covers and parodies, but for Nature Trail to Hell and Buy Me a Condo.
Oh, both are awesome. Because I had Weird Al Dare to Be Stupid. And
I had that one.
I think I had the Food album.
And everything. And so it's pretty interesting because, all the different, because, Weird Al, I've been a fan, but it's interesting because he had Weird Al in 3D, and then, and has his studio albums grew and everything. And it's just like his talent just grew and everything, but he wasn't on my list not for some reason. It's just like, there's only so much, people
you have to leave some people off, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Because I wanted to have, I had the Clash, London Calling on there, and I had, Tori Amos, Little Earthquakes, and stuff like that, stuff like that.
Both great albums.
Yeah. And, you just had to say, okay, where's the line drawn on this list? Because, like I said, I had a list this long originally. So, it could have been pretty amazing. And, going into all different genres and everything. But I think we covered so many different genres in this and everything, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And everything. And we had some pretty honorable mentions and everything. So very cool, folks. Thank you guys on YouTube for following us and sticking with us through this and everything. And can't wait to see what your, favorite albums are. Please send them to us. feedback@ourstation1.com is the best way to get in touch with us with that. But I definitely would love to hear your guys' lists too. And, when we promise not to laugh at anything, because everyone has their own taste of music and everything, which is really cool. And that's why it's great when we come together to put our heads together about different things. So it's pretty cool with us.
And we won't be on camera when we read them.
No. No. We'll be sitting around the room going, look at this one. Look at this. This is what this person wrote.
Nah, absolutely not. I mean, the beauty of these things is that they're all different, and there's so much good music out there.
Well, exactly. And, it's funny because it's like when you have a partner or, someone you're married to, or just together, friends you're together with, every single person has a different taste of music and everything. And it's neat when you can come together and introduce people to new stuff. And hopefully we did that tonight, which is pretty cool. So awesome, guys. Thank you guys so much for doing this. This is cool. All right, let's close up the show. So that's going to wrap up another episode of the Air Station One podcast. Let's thank Ricky and Bambi for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Meow, meow, meow.
Anything you guys want to promote? Do you have any shows or anything, or point you to the website or anything?
Bambi?
Yeah, I don't know. You asked me, I'm like, I don't know where we are until I check the calendar.
Facebook?
Yeah, we're on Facebook. Radio Cult on Facebook. So that's probably the easiest. I try to post all of our shows there, but sometimes I get slack.
If you want to go check us out and see shows from like 5 years ago, there's a list of those at radiocult.com.
I know.
The website that hasn't been updated in so long, you'd think that we had broken up.
I know. I know. I need to figure out a way to get the server to work again.
Just take a hammer to it. That's what most people do.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. And Michelle, thank you for this topic. It was great tonight.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Fun.
Oh yeah. Anything you want to shout out about or anything or promote?
Nope.
No music? You want to just say nope? Nope.
My cat's awesome.
Exactly.
Wait. What about that podcast that used your article as a reference?
Hey, cool.
That was pretty
awesome.
cool, right? That was pretty cool.
Some friends of mine, Eric and Mary Layton, have a podcast called Hall Watchers. And they had an episode called Why is Estelle Axton Not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And they cited my blog post from early 2022 about Estelle Axton, which I was quite honored by. And why isn't Estelle Axton in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yes, if you want to know why she should be, listen to the podcast, read her article.
Nope, totally understand that. Very cool. And Mr. Mike, we've made it through another one, my friend.
We did, and as always, it's my pleasure.
Anything you want to shout out about, sir?
Yeah, I thought it would be a little bit too self-serving and maybe self-indulgent if we picked like albums that we produced.
Yeah, it's like, why was it? Yeah, Tiki Zombie.
I mean, it should go without saying that Tiki Zombie would definitely be an album that I would want, that I never get tired of listening to, and that I would want with me at all times, because it is an amazing album, and largely thanks to the two of you, as well as many other talented folks. And you know, there's other albums that you guys have been part of too that are amazing as well. I don't know why you didn't pick them. No, just kidding. That's between you guys. But you guys are creators of really great music as well, and stuff that I definitely wouldn't mind having on an island with me as well.
That is awesome. That is really, really awesome. Very cool. And can you still get the disc out on Amazon and such?
The Tiki Zombie CD, I still have a few of those. It's streaming. You can get that streaming as well. And
Oh yeah, Spotify.
And absolutely. Our Spotify numbers are crazy stupid too, but I mean, in a good way.
Good. I was going to say, hopefully that's a good.
No, it's good. It's good. I'm like, I look at them, I'm like, wow, people are listening. So, I mean, that's
some of the songs are on Spotify playlists. So we're getting a lot of unique listeners. That's great.
It's good. He scared me
good.
there because I thought he's like crazy. And I was like, wait, you mean like in the negative? Like,
no. Yeah.
All good.
People are returning their listens.
Like, I listen to this, but I don't want anybody to know. Click. Can I subtract my listen download information? Can I detract that?
My shout out real quick is a new cartoon that actually started on HBO, or sorry, Max for everyone. It's the new Superman cartoon. It's called, of course, My Adventures with Superman. The first 2 episodes have popped up on there, and they are awesome, folks. And this is not an older Superman. This is a young Clark Kent, just starting at the Daily Planet and everything. And it's awesome. It is one of the best adaptations of Superman. And I love the cartoons. I love what they did in the 90s and everything. But this is just, so far, this has been awesome and everything. Cool. And definitely worth checking out. And it, there's certain points where you just like, okay, it's going for a younger audience, but then there's other times it's just like, okay, this is the way Lois should be. This is the way Clark should be. This is the way Jimmy should be, and it's great. And I'm looking forward to what they're going to do with it. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, better watch it on Max before it disappears.
Exactly, because everything on Max is just going.
Because everything Max has like a short attention span. Like if you blink, you might be gone.
Exactly, unless it's a reality TV show or something, then it'll be up there forever. So that's a whole nother rant for another time. But we're not going to get into that. But you know what, folks? We thank you for everything you guys have been doing. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the numbers we've been getting. Our numbers have been up. And we are, doing really, really well. Folks over on Good Pods have been sending us our numbers, and we've been doing gangbusters over there. And, keep it up. Thank you.
Did you make like the top number of whatever it was? I saw your post.
Yep, we did.
We have been making it very high on some charts, and it's
That's great.
Nice.
that's another unbelievable, crazy thing in a good way.
Exactly. And it's like people are listening. This is awesome. So it's great that people are, and we love doing the show for you guys, and we're gonna just keep on doing and doing and doing. And as we do it, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, as we like to say. And, like we said, we couldn't do this without you. If you want to support the podcast, please check out our Tee-Public store and get some cool ESO Network swag. Also, remember, if you want to listen to our show, please check out our show before the rest of the world does, because we are up on Patreon, and patrons get us 2 days before the rest of the world. So you can listen for as little as
Anybody really get us?
Do they get us? No, not really, but it's a whole different story. But
They could try.
You get a few
help
extra
support us.
days before everybody to try to comprehend.
Well, exactly. Nobody really gets us. They try to figure us out, but they don't get us. So, but that's a whole thing. But you can check us out at patreon.com/ESO Network. Want to thank our patrons for this week. Of course, let us thank Jill Sanders, Wildcard, Rob McIntyre, and Jacob Haller. Thank you so much, guys, for helping support us. It's great knowing that some of these people are friends, some of these people we've never ever met before, and they're still supporting us, which is really cool. And, it's not like my mom's just up there, writing a check each month. So it's like, okay, here's for your hobby, dear. Thank you. We want to hear from you guys, of course. Please write us anytime at feedback@earthstation1.com. Remember, you can also find Earth Station One wherever fine podcasts are found. And of course, Earth Station One is up on YouTube now. That's why we're doing the video portion, folks. And you know what? Thank you for watching. Our subscription numbers are still going up. Want to get to 100. Then we want to get to 200. I want to get to that magic 1,000 number, because that's when you start making money. So it's pretty cool. So, we're figuring out these algorithms real quick, folks. So definitely tell your friends and tell your neighbors, like and subscribe, and ring the bell if you get a chance. We'd really, really appreciate it. On behalf of myself, of course, Mr. Mike Faber, Mr. Mike Gordon, Michelle Borg, Ricky Zero, and of course, Bambi Lynn. Thank you guys so, so much for listening. We'll see you here next time on your Station One podcast. Listen to some great music this week and enjoy some desert island treats if you get a chance. We will see you soon. Peace, and we are done.
You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.